Yo, let's go and welcome to the video. Yesterday I sat down with Morphling for a while. He's one of the top all-star ranked balanced druids currently for all three raids, Nax, Sarth, and Malygos. They still have the highest Thaddius parse with a 10k DPS, the second highest for horseman fight, fourth on Malygos, but I picked their brain about their spec, their rotation. Did they have any plans to change anything for next week? So there's tons of information in this chat that we had. I'll try to include some timestamps, so look out for those in the description. A couple things to note, some of the higher DPSing balanced druids were using the Dark Moon Fair buff, or their raid was cheesing some of the mechanics in the raid itself, pulling mobs from the military wing into the other wings to get a debuff on the bosses to help them kill it faster. Morphling didn't get the Dark Moon Fair buff, or their raid wasn't doing any of that stuff. So I find all of their DPS to be legit. They also did some 10 bans before their 25 bans, so they got the 4-piece, which is huge. And they also got the Starfire idol to drop during the Nax 25 run. But even on the bosses that they didn't have that idol on, having that 4-piece I think helped out a bit, but still some insane damage here for all these bosses. So hope you enjoy the conversation. Let me know what you think down below. Did you come back for Wrath, or have you been playing all of Classic?
I re-rolled for Wrath. I was playing a warrior through Classic and TBC, and I wasn't really a fan of how warriors looked in Wrath. And when I saw how Moonkin's play, because I got the beta invite, and I was like, oh, I'll try a few classes, and Moonkin just looked really fun. I knew it wouldn't be the top DPS like warriors were for 2 expansions, but
yeah,
thought I'd try something a bit different. Play a caster. Haven't played a caster for a very long time, and no, it's been heaps of fun. It's definitely still hard to beat Death Knights. So there's one in my guild who's really fucking good, and yeah, trying to keep up with him has been a mission, but it's fun. I like the chase gameplay. It's if someone's not above you, then you don't really have any incentive to push harder. So it's been good.
I was surprised because it was hard to get a feel for how DKs were going to do, because on the beta they were just broken for so long with sigil and everything. So I wasn't expecting them to as much as they.
They're just like melee, but also casters. So it's gonna be hard to keep up with the consistent AoE and stuff. But they're also really good on single target. Just looking at Patchwerk logs and stuff, it blew me away. So I was like, geez, I really didn't want to play a Death Knight, so I don't have any regrets at all. But because I played Wrath back in the day, and I really did not like Death Knights, and I still don't. So my mission is to keep them down.
And even in PvP, I don't know if you PvP'd much, but quite annoying in Battleground, arenas.
I did some arena and experienced the 5-6 second spell lock / silence, which was not fun. So I'm pretty salty about that. But that's alright. Not much of a PvPer anyway.
Well, I'm finally looking at your page, all your your parses and stuff. You still got the Thaddy, the number 1 Thaddy, 10k DPS.
Thaddius was really good. But Thaddius, I did something which is what I probably should have done for the rest. So I don't know if you've used the Druid sim off the Discord, the WoW Sims one.
A little bit.
The opener on it and the rotation is essentially besides on the opener, refresh insect swarm even during eclipse. And on the opener it's use your trinket, starfall, treants, and don't insect swarm until you essentially find an eclipse. And I thought that was a bit strange, but I was like, yep, whatever, it's a sim, it probably knows better. And then I was looking at the Patchwerk logs before I went to bed last night, and I noticed the top druid pass is 1,000 DPS over the next, right? I'm like, there's no way that's just a lucky pass. He must have been doing something different. And lo and behold, he is not insect swarming during eclipse. He's only insect swarming when eclipse ends, right? And he's doing it on pull. So it's pull, fairy fire, and then go through the rotation. Which I was like, that's essentially how I thought it would work. And seeing him do another 1,000 blew my mind. I was like, yeah, that's definitely makes much more sense. That's probably how he got the extra 1,000. And on Thaddius, that's what I did, because my mindset was, well, insect swarm's probably not the play. I wasn't really sure if the dot damage would increase with the damage buff or if it snapshotted. So I was like, let's just do Insect Swarm out of Eclipse, or possibly only during movement, right? I want to get as much uptime on the damage buff as I can with Starfire and Wrath. And yeah, like it definitely paid off because I broke 10k, which was good.
Yeah.
Is it still number 1 now?
It looks like it. I mean, it usually updates on your actual like character page. If somebody beats it, it goes down. It still says 1 for that, and Four Horsemen's number 2, and then Malygos 3. So Malygos went down.
Yeah.
You had the 100.
Yeah, on Malygos, it's that same guy who got that top Patchwerk log. Also, I think got the top Mally log. So which is strange because our Malygos was really bad. We didn't stack 2 stars. We only got a 1-star stack, so we never got the 100% damage buff. So I think Malygos is an easy one to break. You just have to get all the sparks stacked, and you should be able to essentially beat everyone.
So the guy that got the top Patchwerk had the Dark Moon Fair buff. Do you have the Dark Moon Fair buff too?
Oh, I did not even. No, we didn't. I didn't even consider that.
Yeah.
Is it really adding
10% damage? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that probably explains most of it.
Then. I don't count it.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking how much more that would add because, like, I'm curious now because if I look at the second top, who's Havu, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's got the W at the end. I've got all these events. I'm just curious as to what the opener is for these top ones because like seeing him that high just like blew me away. And
yeah,
this guy's doing the rotation that the sim suggests, which is to Insect Swarm during Luna. I'm just looking at it now, and he's definitely casting it off cooldown. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the sim rotation is better, and it's this guy with the Dark Moon Fair.
The second one has Dark Moon Fair as well.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Oh wait, what?
Have you from Beef Bar?
Yeah.
They were like the world first.
Yeah, true. No, I didn't even. I always thought that world buffs would be excluded from Warcraft logs. I'm surprised that's even on there.
Like Warcraft logs is a little funky right now, and so is in game. You can do so many things to cheese. Like
I left the Discord because they normally would talk about what was participating in like how to get passes and stuff, like what would be excluded. But after the chicken change in TBC, there wasn't really anything else I could update on. So I was like, oh yeah, I don't really need to be in here anymore. But it sounds like I need to rejoin to check it because I'm curious as to whether or not they're going to scrub the logs to get rid of them, because that's a pretty big increase if that's the case. It doesn't seem fair, but anyway.
The third one, it looks like number 3. I don't see the Boom Bussy. Yeah,
that's a good name. I like it.
They don't have the Dark Moon Fair. What did they get? 6,800 still.
What I did get though, which I don't know if the other druids did, was I was getting Power Infusion and I had the Mage buff.
Focus Magic.
So I don't know if you got a mage in your guild, but an argument you can probably use Focus Magic is like Moonkins probably have the highest average crit rate among all the casters. So for uptime on the mage, you're probably the best candidate for Focus Magic. It may not be the best DPS raid wide. I honestly haven't even bothered to calculate it. It doesn't really matter because it's pretty comparable with other classes. But when it comes to uptime on the buff, Moonkins would have the highest uptime just because your average crit rate is just that much higher. You're popping Starfire in the pool, so you're essentially getting up the buff for the mage straight away. And by the time Starfire falls off, you're already in a lunar eclipse. So they're going to have full uptime for all of that as well. So the only time, the uptime is essentially the lowest is outside of your lunar eclipse, which is, 50 to 60% of the fight. So if you average it between the two, you're looking at, 50 to 55% average crit rate. So it just makes sense. If you ever had to argue for it, that would be the reason why.
Yeah. We have 3 mages. And what happened was, right before we did our first trash pack over, I had Focus Magic. I was like, oh, hell yeah. And then not 5 seconds later, they put it on the other mage. They did their triangle circle of focus magic, and I was like, oh man.
That's just boring. No, you have to get the buff. I mean,
yeah.
it doesn't really add that much, but it just makes sense for the Moonkin to get it because you're not crit capped yet. It's going to give you massive uptime for Luna, and it means the mage is going to have more uptime. But if they're doing it to be fair, I mean that makes sense. You can't really argue with that, but it's cringe.
So it looks like Boom Bussy barely didn't get the pre-pop off.
Yeah, I saw that as well.
0.084 seconds, they popped their wild man.
Were you pre-potting and stuff as well?
Yeah, I was trying to. Yeah, we had an ass pull the last 2 attempts on Patchwerk that we did. We killed it. I think it was the 3rd attempt, but yeah, we had 2 ass pulls back to back, so ours was pretty scuffed.
Yeah, I think I just pre-potted Wild Magic on Patchwerk and then used a normal, like the old haste potion during the fight. But from next week, I'll be going Super Sweat and Wild Magic and then using Potion of Speed. It's only because I didn't really expect to do that well on week 1 because I got pretty unlucky with Mark of the War Prisoner. I still don't have it. I've been doing it every day. And like getting that essentially makes it so I can gem, spell power instead of hit across like 3 items. So it's like it's like 30 DPS or something difference. I was like, look, I'll just wait 1 more week and then go super sweaty. But I definitely know now I should have done it from the start. And also I couldn't decide on whether or not to use Trinket on pool or to use Engi gloves with your first Eclipse because they kind of overlap. And just looking at some of the top logs, they're definitely saving Trinket until after they've used their hyperspeed, which is interesting. The sim seems to suggest that it's definitely better to Trinket on pool, but I don't really know.
The weird thing with Boom Bussy's patch is they did Treant, Starfall, Hyperspeed, Insect Swarm, Wrath, till Lunar, and then used Starfire.
Yeah, wait, use Starfire much later. That's really strange.
I mean, that allows Mark of the War Prisoner to come up off cooldown, or like get Mark of the War Prisoner on cooldown.
Yeah. Like I'm just.
So by doing that, they did get a second use of Mark of the War Prisoner. Had they waited for their hyperspeed, the second mark for as long as they did in the fight.
Yeah.
That's one thing I've been thinking of too. It's like kind of sucks to hold hyperspeed for the first lunar because it takes 8, 10, 12 seconds. So it's like 10 seconds of downtime.
If you had a crystal ball, you could definitely like calculate which one you're using first based on your kill time. Like if your Patchwerk is 3 minutes or 3.5 minutes, then it doesn't really matter when you use them. You're getting basically the same uptime. But if your kill is 2 minutes 20, then you definitely want to be trinketing on the pool to get double trinket use. But yeah, like again, crystal ball, blah blah blah. You'd have to like second and third week logs are going to get so much more competitive just because of that reason. Like guilds know what their kill times are now, so they can sort of calculate. Okay, well, this would be the better timing to use this and use this, and it's definitely going to get harder. So.
Ooh. So can you send me your spec? Do you have that saved anywhere?
Yeah, but it's probably a bit controversial because I am a firm believer in getting 3 out of 3 nature's focus in the resto tree.
I was looking at 15 over there, and I was like, "What? Where are those points?"
And it's only because, even though it's not better across all fights like Patchwerk, I was fairly certain that you would get spell pushback on a few of the bosses. Namely, if I go to Nax now, actually.
It's just.
I'll send you the spec first.
Yeah.
And I'll talk in a sec.
It's just Wrath pushback, right? For that.
Yeah. Where is? Sorry, one sec. Talent. It's basically cookie cutter, except I'm only running 2 points in Furo, I think.
If you could do the glyphs too.
Yeah, one sec. I'll just start quickly doing this on Wowhead. I think I can send a link through there.
Yeah.
Because originally I was going to run a dual spec with essentially one for single target and one for trash and cleave. So
Yeah,
like no Typhoon, no Gale Winds, but
that's what I did. Yep.
I ended up healing in the 10-man and doing a bit of PvP as resto. So my second spec is sitting as resto.
Yeah.
But for next raid, I'll definitely be changing it to the double, the double spec, one for pure single and one for everything else. Because I definitely want to try to get a bit higher of a pass.
I think we might be quicker next, so I'm switching to just like an overall spec. I'm gonna have like my heroic / AoE open.
Yeah, for
from
sure.
now. Because with both of them, I had glyph of, like the minor glyph for Typhoon to not knock back, and I need a spec that has that glyph. I don't want to keep.
Yeah, 100%. The Glyph of Typhoon is a strange one because I started using it in dungeons and I hated it. It was horrendously bad because the pull range was just enormous. I didn't even know how it worked. It got wider, it got longer, and it pulled through walls and through through the floor. And I'm just like, no, this is not going to work in a raid. But next round is essentially just a flat raid, and the trash packs have all been thinned out compared to the original one. So I never ever like pulled an extra pack with it, which was good. So I'm happy to recommend Glyph of Typhoon in Nax at least.
Yeah.
It was safe, and it definitely helped with sort of capturing all the packs. But anyway, did you get the link?
Yeah. And I caused a wipe today with the minor glyph because I pulled a cross of Nexus in a heroic. So I'm like, man, I need to get rid of this. I can't handle having both specs with the glyph.
I didn't. I actually missed 2 points. Sorry, there's meant to be 2 more in Fura, so it's 4 out of 5 in Fura. So this spec was what I was using to dungeon, mostly because I wasn't using Insect Swarm like at all on most of the dungeons except on bosses. So I was like, you know what, I'll just carry it over into raids because I really just wanted to not put 2% extra damage into Wrath. That's essentially where those 2 points would go. They'd go into improved Insect Swarm, and I'd have 2% damage on Wrath. And I was like, nah, I'd rather just have a little bit bigger of a mana pool and have the 70% reduced pushback on Wrath. Because even though if I sim having improved Insect Swarm, 2 extra points in there, because like the cookie cutter is 0 out of 3 Nature's Focus, 5 out of 5 Fura, and then 2 in improve Insect Swarm. It does sim like 40 to 50 DPS higher than like the spec I'm running.
Yeah.
But the problem, the sim, it's just pure Patchwerk fight. There's no spell pushback. There's no AoE damage. So on Patchwerk, it would be better for sure. But there's tons of raid-wide damage in Nax. I'm just looking at the bosses now. I don't think you get any pushback on Lotheb, but on stuff like Grobulus and when people are dropping the poison clouds, like that 1 tick of damage you take that gives you a pushback on your Wrath by like 0.7 of a second, that would be enough to essentially reduce your damage compared to someone who has reduced spell pushback, because uptime is always king. Getting 2% damage on Wrath is not better than losing 2 seconds of cast time on Wrath. Like you're getting an extra Wrath out. So that was my mindset. So I thought it was a better overall spec. Next week, I think I'll change a spec, and instead of running, just looking at it now, I might take another point out of Fura to the 2 points out and put it into improve Insect Swarm. I didn't have an issue with mana at all, except maybe on Kel'Thuzad, I'd use a mana pot instead of a haste pot. And Sartharion on 2 Drakes. I used a Hurricane without an Omen of Clarity, and it really cost me. So I was for about 3 seconds, and everything else was fine.
Yeah, that's rough to use Hurricane without it.
I would definitely never use Hurricane on Sartharion with Drakes up without Omen of Clarity, now that I know. I'll fish it with Typhoon, And if it doesn't proc Omen of Clarity, I'm not hurricaning at all. You might be able to fit one in with a mana pot, but getting a second or a third is definitely impossible if you're not using it with Clarity.
So, let's see, did you swap glyphs on any fights? Like Heigen, did you take off focus, or did you just not worry?
So what I did for Heigen, which is probably why you can see my pass was. Wait, did I get a good on Heigen? I didn't even check.
Yeah, it was 99. Yeah.
So on Heigen, I was debuffed spellcasting speed for about 20 seconds because I was trying to stay in range for Starfall. So on pool, I would Starfall stay close, and by the time I started to move back, I think I got the debuff, or maybe I got it a little bit later. I'm not really sure, but yeah, my Heigen was super scuffed. I had the debuff quite a lot, so I ended up resorting to Moonfire spamming at some point just for the damage, and it worked because I wasn't So yeah, I think for Heigen, if your boss kill time is more than a minute and a half, so 2 minutes, but it's less than I guess 3 minutes, then you should probably take off the focus glyph so you can hit him with Starfall twice. Otherwise, you're still better running focus just because, you can probably move a little bit closer, risk, the 6 seconds of DPS, and if you don't get the debuff, then you're probably going to get the top pass. The person at the top didn't even get a dance phase, so I don't know how anybody's going to compete with that.
Yeah, that's like Belmist and Sunwell. If you didn't get the air phase and pre-patch, then
I think that was the only boss where I had a range issue, because that's what I was concerned with. There would be range issues, maybe on like Saffron and stuff. But Saffron was fine. I just stood behind melee. I did die though because our tank made a bit of an oopsie and peaked during the frost bomb at around 20% or 15%, and he died. And I was next on threat, so I got slapped. So that I'm hoping to redeem myself next week on Saffron, but yeah, I don't really recall any other boss having a range issue, which I thought there definitely would be. It was good for bosses like Grand Widow, because you can sort of position yourself to Starfall the ads you want to kill and not the ads you don't. If you weren't running the glyph, then you'd essentially be risking Starfalling, all 6 of the ads. Yeah. You can't really control it. You'd have to, walk off, very specifically to one end of the raid to prevent it. But I don't think it was good for Lotheb. You're not Starfalling the ads that spawn. That would be pretty annoying for the rest of the raid. You'd probably be the most hated raider if you did that. And yeah, that's about it. I don't think any other bosses' range was ever a thing. It's helped on Glyph, You want to be out of range of Glyph's sphere, but you don't want to be in range of the zombies. So having the Glyph for that was good. Even though I tried to pad and Starfall when they got chowed, but he didn't chow for like a minute and a half or something. So that cost me a lot of damage. So next week I'll just be Starfalling the boss and the boss only. But yeah, that was it. Everything else was fine.
Yeah, on Lotheb I had focus on. I don't think the other Boomy did.
That's
they took out one of the spores, and it freaked me out because the raid lead was like, Starfall just killed a spore, and I was like looking down. I was like, wait, mine's been on cooldown for like 20 seconds. He couldn't have been talking about mine. But then it freaked me out. Like it was in my head the whole rest of the fight. I'm like looking around, like panning my camera, making sure I'm clear before I use Starfall.
Yeah, for sure. Doing that is just like unforgivable to gimp everyone else's DPS. That's one thing you always gotta stay away from. You want to be well liked. You don't want to be the hated guy.
Yeah, we had a weird strat for it too. It was like stand behind the right leg, and then they were trying to grip him in. I don't think the Death Knight grip works on the spores. So it was kind of like
interesting.
Yeah. It was weird because like we're stacked on the leg, but we don't want the spore to get to the boss, and like it was a struggle. We killed a bunch of them far away. That maybe only 1 or 2 people got the buff.
Yeah, that's definitely annoying. Wasn't like we had a few scuffness because like we'd run out and one person would forget, so they'd miss the buff. But at least you're putting the responsibility on them to run over, so that you can't really make a mistake. But I think for next time, if when you do it, as soon as you get the buff, you're probably better off just standing there and DPSing instead of running back to the raid. That's what I was doing. I was running back and losing a lot of uptime, just like spamming Moonfire and stuff. I think it's better just to get the buff and stand still and pump from there. You're in range of everything else.
Can we break down your Patchwerk fight, since that is the target dummy boss?
So Patchwerk, I did what the sim suggested as the opener. I probably didn't do it perfectly. Again, I've never played a druid ever, even on retail, for 15 years. This is my first time, so it was a bit problematic to say the least. There was a lot of Moonfire uses by accident because I played a lot during pre-patch, and I can't unlearn pressing Moonfire, so I was pressing it a lot. But I'll see if I can open my Patchwerk and make sure it was okay.
Yeah, Starfall, Treant. When did you guys lust? Looks pretty soon.
Within 5 seconds. That's what we were trying to do. I don't know if, because that was our first boss, and I don't know if they actually lusted on time. They probably did,
it's pretty early.
So what I was supposed to do was trinket on pull with the pre-pot, but I forgot, so it came out 6 seconds late, so don't judge me. But yeah, so I had the other druid Fairy Fire because we're 2, so I got pretty lucky there too. I didn't have to Fairy Fire. So Starfall, Force Nature, Insect Swarm, and then Wrath Spam for fishing for Eclipse. And then just doing your normal rotation and then Insect Swarming whenever it was up. I still don't think it was better than what the other druids are doing. I know that they were using world buffs, but I still how much did I do? How far off was I compared to the rest? 6-3, yeah, because some guys were doing 6-7, 6-6. I still think, because that was my gut instinct to just insect swarm outside of Luna, not inside. Because I understand why the sim wants to insect swarm. Essentially, it's always during Eclipse. Whenever I was doing the rotation, it felt like insect swarm was always refreshing during an Eclipse. It's because the sim is focusing on having the most uptime of Eclipse. So if you're insect swarming outside of Eclipse, that's an extra GCD that you're essentially fishing for Eclipse, because most of your damage is coming from Eclipse. So I understand the thought behind it, and it makes sense because the sim doesn't do the extra cast. If you look at the timeline, I think I posted on it yesterday just asking if it was in development, and they said, yeah, they would fire the Wrath at proxy Eclipse, and the sim would automatically put up Insect Swarm on the opener. So the sim doesn't take into account the travel time and then the extra Wrath cast. So it's probably, overvaluing putting Insect Swarm up during Eclipse, because you've got an extra cast in Eclipse now, because you're not doing, that Wrath that's, inside your Lunar Eclipse that you're losing damage on. It doesn't have that in the sim. It's automatically starting. It knows when Eclipse is coming, so it's getting an extra cast. So it makes sense why refreshing it, as a sim does, would be a DPS increase. But in reality, it doesn't work that way. So next week it will be. I'll try it the opposite way, just insect swarming outside of Eclipse. I mean, if you probably remember in pre-patch, the rotation was to Moonfire only outside of Eclipse, so it's just a direct swap, I guess, for insect swarm.
Yeah, it looks like your insect swarm was doing about 85, 61 damage, per cast of it. That was how much your first one did. So the GCD was 1.25 or something, and that's pretty high DPS just on the effective damage, whatever the term is. But
yeah, average damage per cast or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's why it values it so high, just because overall it does so much damage.
And it's not wrong. It's definitely, it's the most mana efficient damage you can do, damage spell you can do. It's an instant cast. You can do it while moving, but again, I think it's just because when it gets its Eclipse proc, it instantly would apply Insect Swarm if it wasn't up, especially on the opener, and that would value Insect Swarm very high, because you're not sacrificing a second and a half of your Eclipse doing that extra Wrath that you normally would do. So I think if that was in the sim, it wouldn't do it during Eclipse, because I felt sometimes I was in the Eclipse phase and missing a Starfire cast by half a second. I would miss one extra Starfire with Eclipse, and so if I wasn't insect swarming during Eclipse, then I would have that extra, 10, 11k Starfire, which, if I'm insect swarming during Eclipse, that's definitely a DPS loss, like by a fair margin. There's no way that insect swarming during Eclipse would be better if you're missing a cast. Sometimes I wouldn't, but most of the time I would, I felt like.
It still might be, though. Because your Starfire is like a 1.8 second. And if it's doing 11k, that might not be enough extra damage over Insect Swarm. But did you have the Starfire Glyph?
Starfire Glyph? No, I don't think I did.
Yeah, so...
Starfire's the Moonfire one, isn't it? You talking about the Moonfire Glyph?
No, I mean, it drops in Nax, so you probably wouldn't have had it on the fight, but...
Oh, you're talking about the relic. Sorry, the relic.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I got the relic much later. I got it at Resuvia. So we did Construct, then we did Spider Plague, and then Military. So I had the Glyph for like the last 4 bosses, I think. Sorry, the relic. So I was using the Wrath relic up until then. But yeah, like I definitely understand the math behind how the sim calculates insect swarm, but next week I'll definitely try, at least for fights like Patchwerk, the opposite rotation and see how it goes. I think, like, especially if you're lusting on pool and you got all your cooldowns up, I think delaying the insect swarm outside of Eclipse is probably the play. It seems to be that most of the top logs are doing that, and there's quite a few of them that are doing it. Maybe it's the case where if you're insect swarming outside of Eclipse, your top pass potential is much higher than someone who isn't. That might be the reason why as well. Because if you get unlucky and you don't get any crits, then it's obviously going to be lower DPS. But I find that very unlikely to be the case.
That's what I was going to try tonight. Even, I think, only insect swarm when I move. I didn't want to even like Moonfire since I didn't put the 2 points into it. I was like, I don't want to have insect swarm up and then when I move use slow Moonfire. So I'm going to try that. It might not work that way either, but
it's definitely worth it, insect swarm, if you don't have any eclipses. Like, I think that it's definitely more damage. That's without a doubt, undebatable. But on fights like Thaddius, that's what you should be doing for sure. As long as you got that damage buff, I wouldn't even be dotting because you're getting most of your damage through an eclipse phase with the damage buff. It also helps if nobody dies, in case you didn't know, because
for
every person that dies, you get less damage. So, our raid was good. Nobody died. Nobody made a single mistake as far as I'm aware. So we had like absolutely max uptime on the buff.
People died on the beta, and it slowed the fight down so much, not having in one person. But I think we lost 1 or 2, but it wasn't too bad.
It does make all the difference.
So your haste pot, you didn't pair that with gloves, your hyperspeed. You like using them separate?
So what I was doing was trinketing on the pool and then hyperspeeding on the next Luna. So I think Luna would come out the second one at like 50 seconds into the fight. So haste pot was essentially not up at that time, and most of the time I would forget to even use it, and I would try and pair it with Power Infusion. So the Disc Priest in the raid, I would essentially just send him a message when to do it, but in the start he wasn't really sure when to do it, so I think we just had like mixed up timings, and I think he might have Power Infusioned me during a Wrath Eclipse phase. So
that feels bad. Yeah.
So it essentially the first half of Nax, it was still ironing it out, but by the time I think we got to Thaddius, he was on point. So what I'd be doing next reset is Wild Magic, before the pool, and then haste potting on the next available lunar eclipse. I don't really care too much about pairing it with hyperspeed. I don't think it really matters too much. You want to get as much hyperspeed uptime as you can, so I would be hyperspeeding instead on the pool with your first Luna, then trinketing. and then on the next Luna using my Potion of Speed. So all your cooldowns are essentially going to be staggered by the sounds of it. There's probably a better way to do it if you knew what your kill time was, but I think that's the safe play from next week.
And I like what I see your very last spell is on Patchwerk.
Is it Typhoon?
Yeah, so you were standing on his feet, and then a lot of times, it's been Moonfire. Like, you finish your last cast, you try to like get a Moonfire in, but using that Typhoon, that's a lot more damage. Like it.
Yeah, it's just from I got the hang of it in dungeons to Typhoon at the end, just because I should probably check if it actually does more damage than Moonfire. I didn't even bother to look, but I think it does.
I think it does, yeah.
Yeah,
it can crit for a couple thousand. Moonfire might crit for 1,500 or something.
It's got some travel time, unlike Moonfire. So if I see the boss at 1%, and I know I'm not going to get the next cast out before it dies, then I'll be Typhooning always. That's a bit of extra spice at the end for the extra damage. It may not be enough to get you over the line over the Death Knight, but every bit helps. When I was playing Warlock in Classic, like the last cast would always be a Searing Pain. It wouldn't be a Shadow Bolt because you'd lose that Shadow Bolt in travel time. So it works the same way. If you can't get that Starfire, or if you're casting Wrath and it's not going to make it, just cancel it and Typhoon. It may be the cast that gets you over the line, but always good to add it in there if you can.
Your professions, you're a jewel crafter and
JC Engi, of
course. Engi, okay. And
the jewel crafting you can probably swap for something else, I guess. I don't think it really matters what your second profession is.
I was just going to ask, were you planning on adding bombs into your rotation, like macroing them into Starfall?
So I was actually trying it, I think yesterday. I think I saw one of your posts saying how you can do the @cursor cast Saronite bomb kind of thing.
Yeah.
Although I was trying to do it with the frag belt, but I couldn't get the macro to work. Like I don't know how to @cursor the frag belt. Because essentially that's what the frag belt is. It's just a Saronite grenade or whatever.
I think the frag belt has a cast time, so I want to say Saronite's the only one with no cast time, so you can just macro it in.
They all did. Saronite bomb, is that the one that you use?
Yeah. So
you're right. It doesn't have a cast time.
When I leveled up, when I leveled up engineering, I had so many boxes of them anyways that I'm good for the next couple weeks just on throwing bombs. I threw like 71, I think, throughout the raid night.
And yeah, like if you're definitely trying to get that 99, that's a no-brainer, because I was used to playing melee where we'd be sappering instead of using bombs, just because no cast time. You can move while casting. The grenades were good, but most of the time I was just sappering. But yeah, I was actually trying to figure out how to do it with the belt. I didn't even consider doing it with the normal bombs. I should have been using them because I've got like 1,000 of them from leveling.
I might try sappers tonight. I didn't try them. I don't know if they scale off of your spell power or your crit or anything like that. So the
problem with sappers is, I believe, I don't know if it works this way in Wrath, it will put your bombs on like a 5-minute cooldown.
Yeah.
Instead, so you won't. Using 5 bombs is better than using 1 sapper.
That's what I was thinking. It probably
depends on fight length.
Mm-hmm. But if it scales pretty well, then I'm like, shoot, that might end up being better maybe on like a Patchwerk where it's just a single target. But yeah, I might throw one in there tonight. Yeah.
You're right though. Like using bombs is definitely the play if it's instant cast time. Lucky I had some of my bags. I just threw on then. You're definitely right. But I probably wouldn't use them on any single target bosses, just because I don't want to burn through my gold too quickly just yet. But for something, I'm just thinking which bosses, like a Nubrakan would be really good to use the bombs on pool. That would be insane. Extra, 4k damage or something on the pool. Geez, I don't know what to macro it into though, because I'm already essentially full on binds from. I don't know if you probably saw it. The hyperspeed accelerator macros are all broken now ever since the hotfix. I've got a macro line that's use Trinket, use Hyperspeed, cast Starfire, and then cancel Q. So that way you can, mash it whenever whichever CD is up, and it will use your Trinket and then cast Starfire, or it would use your Hyperspeed. But now that macro is broken.
Oh man!
Ever since yesterday, I don't know. Did you see it happen? Have you got a similar macro?
I don't think I made a macro. I was planning on making one. I was going to use 10, which is the item slot for the gloves.
Yeah, that's what I have in the
That one,
in the line.
that's broken.
Yeah. I'll.
Dang.
It actually works as long as it doesn't have /cast Starfire. I'll see if I can screenshot it and send it. I actually broke the macro. Hold on. So it looks like this. I don't use it now, obviously, because it's broken. Like the way that would work is it would Trinket first and then Starfire. And then if Trinket was on cooldown, it would Hyperspeed and then Starfire. And the whole reason for writing it that way, so you can mash it and it will always use them before casting Starfire. Because, if you're mashing Starfire, you can't put up your Trinket, you can't put up your Hyperspeed. But for some reason, if you have any macro with /use 10 in it and your gloves are on cooldown, it will not cast whatever spell you have in the macro. So hopefully they fix it, because it creates another 3 bindings, I think, if that's broken, which is extremely frustrating. But we'll see how we go. I might just have to take regrowth and rejuve off the bars and put a bunch of hyperspeed macros on the bars instead.
So you got the Starfire relic, switched to using that. Are you gonna stay using that on every fight next week?
100%. So I simmed the 2 of them before the raid, just out of curiosity, and it was consistently outputting 30 more DPS than the Wrath relic, which is pretty significant. And it seemed to do really good. So I'm definitely going to give it another go. It makes sense to use that one over the Wrath one anyway. I'm thinking maybe for Lotheb to going back to Wrath, because looking at some of the top passes, Wrath damage was just out of this world on that fight. So I think I might try it on Lotheb only, but use Starfire for the rest. I wouldn't be too worried over which one it buffs more so what you get, which one gives you more out of it. If you're leveling and out in the world, the Wrath, you'll probably get more value out because you might be spending more time casting Wrath, but in raids, you're using all your trinkets, all your procs, your hyperspeed, your potions with Starfire, not with Wrath. So you'll just be getting more out of the Starfire relic anyway. The sim seems to suggest that it's 30 DPS higher, and I don't really see any margin for error on that, because most of the margin of error comes from using Insect Swarm and the timing of it. So it doesn't really matter which relic you're using for that purpose. And 30 DPS is a pretty big gap for a relic on a Patchwerk fight. And your Starfire and Wrath casts are pretty consistent across all fights, I'd imagine. Even on because when you're moving, you're essentially losing as much uptime on Wrath and Starfire equally. So I don't really see a situation where the Wrath relic is better. If in fact the sim is correct and you are getting 30 DPS more out of Starfire on a Patchwerk fight. The only fringe case I can think of is Lotheb, really. So I definitely would lean towards Starfire if you got it. But if you did want to use the Wrath one, then I would definitely take 3 out of 3 Nature's Grace, because getting pushback on that with the Glyph is definitely going to cost you.
Oh, Nature's Focus.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
The one that reduces pushback.
Yeah.
Were you running the cookie cutter Glyphs, or were you running... I remember seeing you say somewhere that you were going to try something different.
Yeah, I tried Starfire to extend Moonfire 3 extra 6. I haven't looked back, seen how much damage my Moonfire did compared to Insect Swarm without it being glyphed. I wanted to compare it with somebody that had Insect my own to see there's been so much I've been doing. I haven't compared it. But
What are your thoughts on it? Are you gonna switch back to cookie cutter, or are you gonna stay in the
Tonight, let me send you my spec for tonight.
I thought you were already locked, or are you doing 10 man or something?
Yeah, it's just for 10 man. I'm gonna try it for 10.
I think the thought behind it is like running, because Insect Swarm is so strong currently because of set bonus and whatnot, and the fact that if you're running the Starfire Glyph, you want to run both of them for more benefit. You can't fit Moonfire in.
Yeah.
Starfire.
Yeah,
Using the cookie cutter.
Moonfire I didn't like. See, wait. Hold on. That's not the...
I think you sent me...
oh, there's 3 points left. So the 3 points I have in Owlkin Frenzy. And then I only have 1 in Balance of Power because I'm 2% over hit. So that's a a niche thing I'm doing tonight.
2% over hit? Are you gemming hit?
I do have some gems, but what happened was I got Leggings of Atrophy from Nubricon, and it has 50 hit on it. So when I put them on, I was trying to re-gem. I have a 16 hit gem in my belt, 4 hit rating for the bonus, so like 20 hit there. I threw a 19 in there on 80 upgrades. I tried to get rid of my other 2 9 spell power 8 hit gems, and I was still over cap.
Yeah, that's a lot of hit.
Yeah.
Jeez, I wish I had your problem. I'm constantly trying to reach hit cap with that Mark of the War Prisoner. It's been an absolute pain. But
so
Owlkin Frenzy is interesting. I mean, the good thing with Owlkin Frenzy is you definitely have the potential to do more damage to everybody else, but you're gonna have a lot of trouble proccing it. That's for sure.
Yeah, I usually like to have 2 points in there, but I threw a third one in there just because I couldn't make up my mind. I was like, do I put one in Dream State? Overall, it was only like 17, I think, for the whole raid. But I think I had 2 points. But some, like the fights it does work on, it's nice, but that'd be another thing where if I was really trying to do it, I would have two specs, one with, one without.
I thought, does it tick on AoE damage, or is it only direct damage that procs it?
It's weird. It does some on both. It just depends. And
it's definitely a bit of spice to try and get the really high level, but I definitely wouldn't be as consistent, because even then, if it does proc on certain AoE damage, like let's say you get Chain Lightning by Thaddius, it's still a pretty low proc chance. So you've got, you might get Chain Lightning 5 times, and then out of those 5 times, you've got a really low chance to proc it. I thought about it, but it definitely would be a lot less consistent, and I like to push for consistency over
cheese.
Getting a top pass. Yeah, it's definitely not. If it worked a lot, it definitely wouldn't be cheesy, but there isn't too much like direct damage being applied to you in Nax that I can think of, besides like Thaddius Chain Lightning.
I only looked at the first 3 bosses earlier when I was trying to look to see what was proccing it. At Nubricon, it didn't proc, but I don't think I got hit by the spikes, so that could proc it. So it could kind of like even out your DPS for the fight if you do get hit by it, I think. So at least you have that 10% damage bonus, maybe. So you can kind of like keep your DPS going. And then Grand Widow, it procced off Poison Bolt Volley, which
that's big.
Yeah, and then Mexna, it procced off of something I couldn't find what procced it. I didn't take damage from whatever it was, but I just got the proc. I don't know if it was.
That's 3 out of 3 in Spider.
Oh yeah, a Nubricon's just a guess. I don't know if that spike's going to, but I assume it.
Oh, I definitely would, for sure. Like that's the kind of damage that definitely would proc it. Yeah, that's tempting.
Yeah.
Tempting to run it on the second spec for sure, like in the pure single target overrunning improve insect. But if you don't proc it, you'd be pretty sad.
So you're happy with your glyphs for next week, right? Starfall, Focus, Insect Swarm.
Yeah, I think the only boss which it was questionable, being Hygen. I'm just gonna like pop it on pool, hope the hunter misdirects the tank so I don't die, and just forget about pressing it again, and just stay 40 yards from the boss, because that casting debuff is very painful, going from, 1 second Wrath to 3 second Wrath is not fun. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't change anything else. I think the Moonfire damage is just the base damage is just too low, like at the moment, compared to Insect Swarm. Like you got like plus 40% is hard to compete with,
Yeah.
The tier set bonus just makes it a no-brainer. I think later in the expansion we end up going back to Moonfire. I don't really know. I haven't looked, but if it's in the tier bonus, it's going to be hard to ignore.
So how sweaty would you say your guild is?
Not sweaty at all. Like we've got some really good pumpers, as in we've got some players who like to pass, but we're not a passing guild, if that makes sense. Like as in we don't do any specific strats for passes. We don't, there's no expectation to pre-pot. Maybe on progression and stuff when we're maybe trying to do hard modes later on, it will be to pre-pot, but it won't be for the purpose of passing, if that makes sense. It's more just for killing the fight.
So since you're coming from playing a warrior, do you think glyphing Insect Swarm and getting rid of that 3% hit is a big deal? Does that hunters still give that debuff, do you know?
I think there's a bunch of classes that give the debuff, and to be honest, the damage on, as in like the tank damage is super low, even on fights like Patchwerk compared to, what you'd be worried about. So I don't think it really matters. If your guild wanted to be like a pain about it and say, look, we want to be really safe and get the debuff up, then like I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of other classes that give that same debuff. Because I mean, if you think about it, the faster kill time is less damage on the tank as well. So like, don't gimp the druid by making them not glyph plus 30% damage to Insect Swarm. I mean, that's just crazy. I would definitely just say, look, instead, get the hunter to put up Scorpid Sting. I think it's Scorpid Sting, isn't it?
That's what I'm trying to find. I was looking at the debuffs that you guys had on Patchwerk.
Oh, we probably weren't using it because it's kind of nothing. Like, as in the tank damage isn't really a big deal in ICC. Oh, sorry, not ICC. In Wrath, unless it's like Algalon. Algalon, it's definitely worth having that debuff up. He absolutely slaps. But yeah, it didn't really feel like we needed it at all. It's pretty cruisy in Wrath. But there should be a bunch of other debuffs that do it as well. There should be a cheat sheet somewhere, but I don't know what it is. Yeah, Scorpid Sting 3% for 20 seconds. So if it was really an issue, just ask your hunter to put it up. I mean, it's either you do it or the hunter does it. So make the hunters do it.
Gotta look. Oh yeah, it looks like it's just Insect Swarm, Scorpid Sting, and they're both 3%. Yeah. Seem like it's important anyway.
I mean, I don't know about your group, but we definitely didn't have any issue with tank deaths at all. Well, we did once on Saffron, but that was, that was a one shot from the old Frost Blast.
Our Saf was bugged. Like, Saf would go up and then come back down. So, like, you couldn't really see the Frost Orb thing coming down. So it was hard to know, like, when the damage was coming out.
Yeah, we were lucky we did 10-man earlier that day, like before our 25. So we got to experience that bug beforehand. So we sort of knew it was happening, which was good. He looks a bit funky. He definitely doesn't fly.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Did you get any gear other than the relic?
I got 4-piece before our 25-man, which definitely helped. I think once I got 4-piece in 10-man, I was like, yep, tonight's going to be the night. Let's try get some rank ones. So I was definitely lucky in that. I think 4-piece is probably your biggest upgrade.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's in 500 DPS getting 4-piece, which was probably a bit more than it was. It was probably more like 250, 300, but definitely felt good getting the 4-piece. What else did I get? Lost Jewel, which is our second Bis ring, I think.
Yeah.
It's not as good as the other one. The other one dropped as well, but I didn't win the roll. And the offhand, Accursed Spine from North, the crit one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
I dropped.
That's the one I'm after, yeah.
I dropped, I think, 2.5% hit swapping those items. So I'm essentially banking on getting the trinket from Violet Hold, and then I won't have to regem because God, I don't want to spend another 400 gold regemming.
Yeah,
I'm the opposite to you right now.
I've been farming ore, Serenite ore to get prospected for my gems. I'm over it right now.
What did you spend? Have you bought anything with your Valor tokens? I bought.
I was gonna ask you that. Yeah.
I already bought tier 7. Oh, sorry, I got tier 7 shoulders and tier 7 helm from 10 man, and then I just bought tier 7.5 from Valor tokens just because there's nothing else really that good to buy. Like I don't think there's anything else you can buy that's worth your Valor tokens. Like especially if you're short on them, right? You don't want the pants. You want to go for the other pants, the offset pants, and all the other Valor tokens are just for hit rating items, which aren't very good.
You got the relic to drop in the raid, so you don't have to spend any on that.
Oh yeah, can you buy the relic with Valor tokens? I didn't even see it on the vendor.
It's a different vendor. It's over on the other side. Well, it's close to the Alliance side, I guess. Kind of near the fishing daily fishing trainer.
Yeah,
like across the path from that.
I saw it on the on Atlas Loot, and I was like, oh, I wonder why it's not on this vendor, but that makes sense. It's just actually somewhere else. Yeah, I mean, if you don't have tier shoulders, then you should probably pro tier 7.5 and then go for the relic, and then you're essentially done. There's nothing else you need to buy. If you're unlucky with getting your 4 set, you can probably get the pants as well. But I mean, there's so many ways to get it. I did VOA yesterday and got the Resto Druid tier 7.5, I think, chest. And I got the top PvP chest as well for Resto too. So between VOA, 10 man, 25, like I'm sure you'll be able to get 4-piece in 2 weeks. There's just so many sources of loot now. I think we ended up with something like 80 epics from our 25 man night. So
yeah,
it's a lot of Abyss crystals on the AH right now.
Good, it needs to go down. That's what I spent most of my gold on in pre-patch, was buying those for the plus 10 to stats, weapon and.
Oh, ouch! Now I went budget. I've only got plus 8 and plus 50, which if I wanted to pass next week, I should probably fix that. But I'm still a bit of a cheapskate. I'd rather wait until it's a little bit cheaper. The guild is currently just selling all the abysses while they're, I think on our server they're up to 250 a pot.
Ooh.
Now they're down to 202. So I think by next lockout or the lockout after, they'll be like 10 gold each. So
yeah,
the plan is to sell them and sell any and all we get our hands on for now.
I bought my.
Did you get any good BOEs?
BOEs? I don't know if we got any BOEs.
We got like 10. We got Surge Needle, which went straight on the AH as well. I think that sold for 17,000. So we're definitely making bank off week 1, that's for sure. You may not. I wonder if your guild even noticed that they're BOE. A lot of people didn't. Everyone just assumed it was bind on pickup.
Alright, so Sarth, 2 drakes. Are you guys gonna try 3 drakes at all, or just keep 2?
We did 3 drakes on 10 man, or the other group, not my group. I didn't do the first 10 man group. They attempted it, and on 10 man, 3 drakes is very hard compared to 25. So like they tried, I think, for 3 hours. They gave up. They did 2 drakes, no problem. And so in our 25 man, we were like, yep, let's do 2 drakes first, because 3 drakes was pretty tough on 10 man, and we absolutely wiped the floor on 25 man on 2 drakes. So just an FYI, if you haven't tried it, 3 drakes on 25 man is significantly easier than 3 drakes on 10 man. Like 10 man feels very, very difficult compared to 25, just because, if you're not running 3 tanks, then it's pretty hectic to pick everything up. But on 25 man, like, you've got room to run an extra tank and pick up ads and, pick up the extra Drake if you've got more than one to spread out the damage. It's just, you've got more, bums on seats to do different roles, whereas in 10 man you don't. So next week will be definitely 3 Drakes on 25 man. I'm not sure about 10 man. We'll see how we go. It felt like a bit of a gear check, but 25 man, 3 Drakes is definitely doable if you're not like quite straightforward. there's still a bit of a DPS check to get one of the drakes down before the other spawns, I think. I'm not really sure. But it was very, very easy on 25. Like I think we one-shot it. I don't think we had a wipe on 25.
Yeah, we one-shot the 2 drakes. That's all we did. We went in there, didn't try 3 at all.
Yeah,
it was close. It was pretty close for it.
We were lucky in that we all did the 10 mans before our 25, so everyone sort of already knew what to do. It wasn't too scuffed, but yeah, like it definitely felt, compared to 3 drakes, it felt like a completely different fight. 2 drakes, so next week will definitely be a 3 drake only fight on 25 men at least. I don't know about 10 men. How did your mana go on Sarth? It's a pretty long fight on 2 drakes compared to all the other fights.
I don't even remember, because I know I had to B-res. I don't remember what I did.
You see, that the strategy is, this is a secret tech, and I'll share this with you and you only. What you want to do is use your battle res on trash. So that the blast on cooldown. Ooh.
I know, I do that, but who dies on Sarth's trash? Come on.
That's right. It resets between wipes as well. Yeah, that's rough. Oh, goddamn battle res. Why is it so expensive? Yeah. I think I'm just going to save mana pot for Sarth always. Lucky being Engi with injectors, man. Those mana pots give you so much mana. It's like 6,000 or something. I'll be doing that forever from now on. It's definitely the play.
Oh yeah. I went out of mana, and guessing I mana potted. Yeah, I used a mana injector, 5,300 mana. I innervated myself.
Gee. Yeah, the getting those ads down, the whelps, if you're I always opened with Typhoon, fish for the proc, and if no proc, I think I still went for it. And yeah, a couple times I didn't get it, and I was like, nah, stuff it. I just got to get these ads down. But I went I think just as the last Drake died. I ended up just melee swinging the boss for about 5 seconds to get a bit of mana, and then I got Innovate up, so I was all good from there. So it was only a brief window, which wasn't too bad.
So I got 350 mana from Owlkin. Just another thing.
Sarth?
Yeah.
How many times did it proc on Sarth?
Probably just once. Let me see.
Oh, that's rough.
It was probably from like getting aggro on a whelp or something.
Yeah, true. That's jump into bed, taunt a whelp, hope for a proc. It's big brain play.
Yeah. I like that.
I might actually have the Owlkin spec for next week, but I don't know what to drop. I still like Nature's Focus more over anything else for those fights anyway, where there's a lot of damage going out. Because I think there's like random fireballs that just kind of float around the platform. And if that hits you during a wrath, I think that definitely gives pushback. That's just personal preference anyway.
I mean, you could take even more points out of Furor since you mana issues. It does give a little bit of crit. Oh, you were going to go Improved Insect Swarm.
Yeah, it's more so versus Improved Insect. I don't think Improved Insect is ever worth it over either Furor or, like in your case, Owlkin Frenzy. I don't know, like the sim only, I think it said it was like 30 or 40 DPS, and I prefer the flexibility of, like you said, getting an Owlkin proc, which would definitely outvalue it. Getting either Nature's Focus so you don't lose a Wrathcast. I think those are just strictly better in any real world situation. It's just fights like Patchwerk where it doesn't matter. Like that's where obviously Improved Insect Swarm is better, and so is Furor.
So for Sarth, you were doing your normal rotation, right? And just typhooning.
Yeah, like definitely it's only because when whelps are out, like if you're like, obviously everyone needs to AoE and get them down, but if you don't have an Omen of Clarity proc, you're probably going to go during the fight. So it just makes sense to fish for it with a Typhoon. And I was even doing it on the elementals as well, because that sometimes we had 5 or 6 up, and I think Omen of Clarity proc scale with the amount of like ads you're hitting with Typhoon. So if you're hitting like 4 or 5, you're probably going to get a proc all the time. But like when we're actually doing 3 drakes, I don't think I'll be AoEing at all. I think I'll just be Typhooning whenever I can when there's a bunch of ads, and then just sticking to single target, because the main issue on 3 drakes is your damage on the drake, not on ads. Like your Death Knights and stuff are going to be doing a bunch of passive AoE, you know, warriors are going to be blade storming. There's a bunch of DPS classes that just do AoE naturally without having to change the rotation all too much. So I think like hurricaning is never the play on 3 Drakes or similar. It's probably not even worth it on 2 Drakes, but you got to get that fat pass. So it just depends what your priorities are.
And then Malygos. How did you end up doing so well on Malygos?
I think everyone else just did really badly, to be fair. I don't know if it takes into account Drake damage. My Drake damage was really poor as well. I got focused like 6 times, a whole bunch of times, so I dropped stacks.
It doesn't look like it.
Yeah, we did not have a good melee at all. Like I said, we didn't get a double damage buff at all, just a single damage. But we did. So what did happen is he did his vortex at like 51%. So we were able to damage him for ages during his like RP phase when he's talking, which might have contributed, I guess, to a better pass because we got him down quite low before he flew away. Because he after his vortex, he still sort of stands around for a bit during his animation, and then he would fly back up and then start talking. So we had tons and tons of uptime during that, which is just by chance. And maybe I did well during the ad phase. Like I had really good uptime on that. I think as each week goes on, it will get harder because most guilds will figure out how to do the double stack of the buff, and most of your ranged DPS are going to clue on to how to get more uptime on phase 2. And yeah, if you can get really good uptime in phase 2, that's probably going to push you over the edge anyway. Getting a good Starfire with like 3 ads stacked and stuff, I think that will bring you over the line. I definitely wouldn't change your glyphs for Malygos. I think the Starfall and Focus one are definitely huge on it. Because you can hit the ads that are flying as long as they're above you with it. So, I didn't ever encounter a situation where there was an ad too far from my Starfall on phase 2. So,
same for Sarth.
In Sex Form as well.
You wouldn't change glyphs for Sarth either, right?
No, Starfall was really like that. Starfall is like your only source of like passive AoE on that fight for the whelps. So if you want to be able to contribute to AoE and not gimp your mana, it's definitely the play to keep Starfall, and definitely keep the the Typhoon glyph on that. Oh my god, if I was not running that glyph, I think I would have been G-kicked on that fight because I was using Typhoon a lot for Omen of Clarity procs. I think a general rule is just to run the Typhoon glyph at always in raids. It's pushing mobs out of Death and Decay is going to get you some really bad hate mail because Death Knight's damage with Death and Decay is enormous. And try and convince your priest to give you Power Infusion. That's always a big one.
Yeah. Saw the 2 PIs on Malygos.
Yeah, that definitely helped. It's easy to say, rotation was good, this glyph, but getting a PI is going to put you over any other druid if you get it during Eclipse. So I imagine you're running a Disc Priest, at least one.
Yeah.
There's no better target than a Moonkin and Eclipse, I'm just saying. Because everyone's burst phase is during Bloodlust, and you get essentially a 15-second burst phase every 45 seconds or so. So convince your Disc Priest that's better on you.
Cool. Anything else to add? I've got 45 minutes, but I gotta get a little ready for the 10 mans.
I gotta go have some breakfast, my man.
Yeah.
You'll I'll message on Discord, probably on your Discord after next reset if like swapping out the rotation to the other guy's rotation ends up being better. But otherwise, I wish you luck on your next pass.
Yeah, I need it.
We all want to see those juicy 99s in all fights.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, man.
No worries. Good luck, dude. Have a good one. Take it easy.
Yeah, see ya. All right, cool.